The Tuesday Night Tour has returned. Welcome back to the Integrity OCTANE Series after several weeks away and a little bit more time waiting. It's about time we see some of the highest horsepower stock cars in all the country come back to life. We're going northeast once again. We were down to the south last night, but we've made the trek up from Atlanta to New Hampshire. Welcome to Loudon at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the 18th race on the schedule here in the OCTANE Series. Qualifying currently on the move with 3 minutes and 30 seconds remaining in timing charts. Drivers still taking those times as they get themselves prepared for the main event. At the top of the board with provisional pole, it's going to be the driver of the number 44. As always, Michael Araya up at front of the field. He's looking to compete against some former race winners and contenders from last season. 2023's dominant drivers of Sam Nieto and Jacob Fife respectively. The drivers who definitely were in full control last time around. They've come back, and right now Sam Nieto finds himself in third, and it's going to be Jacob Fife still yet to take a lap here in the number 36, and you'll see him making his way through turns 1 and 2 respectively. Fife in the middle groove, getting himself settled in, getting a little bit loose at that, and the Pro Powder and Paint number 36 machine prevails, running down the back straightaway here on his lonesome. Tom Golker in the number 77, brand new driver coming in for the first time today in the MBNA Pontiac Grand Prix. We mentioned rookies coming back into the fold after our summer break, and Tom is one of them, looking to compete against the best of the best here. Ethan Lane jumps up to the pole position by 9/1000ths of a second, and now it's going to be Lane parking it. It looks like he's satisfied with his lap, and he'll go down and in as a result. Brian McFerrin right now going to find himself in 8th there in the 07. Bobby Ross going to be 9th, and Tom Golker going to be 10th now. Golker, the rookie, making his way up, and Brian McFerrin, another strong qualifying run so far. Provisionally speaking, he finds himself in 6th after a pole position last night in Atlanta. Not bad at all for McFerrin, the Under Armour 07 team. Tom Golker right now going to be 10th, coming across the line for his final lap. And at the line, number 77 still remains in the top 10. Moves up to 7th as a result for the 77 crew. And Matt Jonas now on the circuit. Coming across the way, Matt Jonas going to be currently in 16th. As he comes across the line, that was his 4th lap. Overall, he's taken his 2 necessary laps to get a qualifying run in, and he finds himself provisionally at the bottom of the field, just ahead of Bobby Terrell by a few thousandths of a second. But for the time being, Jonas is going to be behind the good majority of the pack, who have told, of course, all the drivers around, it's a different running style here in New Hampshire this season. Jonas was with us in 2023, but it was the next-gen drivers, of course, taking it on with the modern stock cars rather than the Gen 4s. And Tom Wetmore now, the number 51 machine for Tube Tech, goes high up to the top side of the circuit, looking to build some momentum as we go into lap 1. We're hearing something about the HCBB broadcast on FTN, which is not connected to what's going on at FTN Studios tonight in iRacing. There's an internet outage for Xfinity, the major internet provider, and we're being told that HCBB as a whole is not allowing fans into the server due to persistent internet troubles. And it looks like the stream is back. To our knowledge, the broadcast is in motion. So check that out right now for further updates. If you're watching Roblox tonight on FTN, you should be fine, and the broadcast should continue. Bear in mind, we're not connected to that directly. We will let you know as updates occur. However, we should be fine to progress throughout the remainder of tonight's broadcast. And so we're here, the internet is connected, and Ethan Lane is at the top of the board. Lane, the winningest driver in OCTANE Series history, has done it once again. Warm up for 5 minutes time. And with that being said, it's about time to learn a little bit more about the field that we've got in store tonight. More than 20 drivers have once again come back into the picture, and the OCTANE Series, so consistent with its entries, is only 6 races away from the championship fold and the playoff picture. So, that being said, looks like drivers are going to be taking on the Magic Mile, getting set to go at it once again. Very familiar faces and some rookies alike. That being said, indeed, let's get to know your starting grid for tonight's event from top to bottom. At the head of the field for tonight's race, who else but the number 54 of Ethan Lane, 29.978 inside of row number 1, and right beside him, Michael Araya, the gap between both of which 9 one-thousandths of a second. Nick Tarbuck going to be third with a 30.02, and fourth spot then goes to Sam Nieto outside the number 2 machine. Nieto went toe-to-toe last season with Jacob Fife for the race victory at this very circuit. Fife ended up getting the checkered flag at the end of day. Don Stevenson going to be 5th inside of row 3 with a 30.126. Then from there, Brian McFerrin going to be in the 6th spot. Brian, 2 very successful qualifying runs as of recent, and he's going to find himself once again with another 6th place for the time being with a 30.14. Tom Golker going to be in 7th with 30.206, and Galen Goodman's going to be 8th with a 30.233. Cody Smith, position number 9, and rounding out the top 10, Bobby Ross, the number 45 crew, pulls into the top 10. One of Bobby's very first races last year. He's come back to the site of one of his very early top 10 runs, looking to do so once again. 11th place going to be Ross Cato, Nicholas Ward, then in 12th, and 13th is Jacob Fife. 14th spot goes to Kyle Cooper, and 15th is Evan Ludy, with Matt Jonas in 16th, Bobby Terrell then 17th, and Tom Wetmore in 18th. John Steele, the 19th and final driver, who puts himself in the timing sheets with a 31.296, and Brad Patton decides not to take a time as per usual. He's 20th. And from there on out, only 3 additional drivers: John Dearvon, Randy Fiash, and Eli Cars in the number 82. That is a look at your 23 drivers starting grid for the Magic Mile 151. Top to bottom, 23 drivers due to compete. Ethan Lane at the top of the board, and we're hearing official word that the HCBB broadcast is back for those who have tuned in for additional updates during the internet outage. So let's get back to the racing that's at hand tonight, and I'm sure Sam Nieto, among others, would love for a successful run. Nieto maybe trying to bounce back after what has been so far perhaps not the most impressive of seasons. Last season, a multi-time race winner, one of the championship favorites going through the earlier rounds. Seth Noel might have been head and shoulders above the majority of those drivers. Either way, the number 2 machine of Nieto, he was one of those who could come into any race and have a chance for a top 5, if not a race win. So, looking at him at the top of the board once again, he's in a real good spot to compete against some of the best in the business this season, and I think perhaps it's going to be the veterans trying to stick it to the new drivers and the full-time rookies. We've seen Ethan Lane before, but Lane is looking a little bit different this season, coming back for a full-time campaign after only a select stint in 2023. And right now, coming down the back straightaway, he's 4th in the timing charts. Let's take a ride on board with Lane and see exactly what's going on. Ethan Lane runs down the back straightaway. That time by, he sets a lap of a 30.092, second quickest on the session. So it's going to be Sam Nieto, still the quickest right now by a 10th, and it looks like he's rather confident in what he's got regarding equipment as we come down the back straightaway all over again with 20 seconds remaining. 18 seconds and still counting down. Nieto, Lane, Bobby Ross, the 1, 2, 3 running as it stands. Very familiar faces from last year. Ross Cato going to be 4th. Brad Patton is in 5th. Nick Ward then in the 6th spot, and Tom Wetmore in 7th. Tom Golker going to be 8th, and Matt Jonas is in 9th, with Evan Ludy rounding out the top 10. But make no mistake, in warm-up tonight, Sam Nieto's the quickest driver. He sets a time under 30 seconds, and that is exactly the time to beat in the final practice session. We're hearing word of continued disconnection troubles, and it should be a switch-up broadcast for the HCBB League. Stick with us here in the Integrity Ignite Series. Crystal clear connection here on the iRacing platform, giving us no trouble tonight, and we'll be entertaining you all throughout for the rest of this event. Michael Araya going to be in the outside front row, Ethan Lane going to be in first, and as it stands, we're in a good position to get racing here. It's time to go at it once more. The Magic Mile 151 going to be an exciting race, mostly comprised, I would say, of strategy. If you remember last year what happened, it was unbelievably tricky. Michael O'Ryan, the number 44, he wasn't here, but alongside him, guys like Sam Nieto, Jacob Fife, Don Stevenson all had to duel all throughout the race, and the big problem was strategy with the tires, because coming out of turn 4, drivers would get loose and they would get shredded consistently. Pace car is going to roll off, and here we go again. With the field assembled for the green flag, down to the inside, Ethan Lane and Michael Araya up top. We're providing final updates on the HCBBL circumstance, and we'll keep you all focused on the racing. Pace lap, the one and the only. iRacing's official pace car going to drop down low, Ethan Lane on the bottom side, and Michael Araya right back up. Side by side here, as Lane's going to be all the way to the bottom. The advantage in the Magic Mile, it should be his, at least for this first lap. iRacing's pace car drops down low, and here we have it. A crowd packed in Loudon, New Hampshire, excited to see the Octane Series come back from summer break. Green flags out, and Ethan Lane brings them down the front straight. Caution is out for the first time tonight. Back of the field, big trouble, and multiple drivers shuffle around. Looks like a botched start at the tail end of the field, and so we'll take a look back once again and see exactly what's going on. Yellow flag flies, and here we go again. Trouble will go down for our first yellow flag. Matt Jonas into Tom Wetmore, Wetmore into Bobby Terrell. And there you have it, drivers beating and banging off of one another, and so caution's out immediately. Early pacing, Ethan Lane to number 54, and he's got the race lead after a first caution. And managing some internet disputes all throughout the country here, Xfinity with a major disconnection outage, and we're hearing word that the HCBL broadcast should be good to go. If you're coming in right now for maintenance and updates, we're hearing word that Orifarius will be broadcasting the World Series opener. And if you're coming in right now, you are coming in for updates on the circumstance. And the word is in, the broadcast is live to our understanding. So if you're tuning in right now, head there for the Roblox action. And all the iRacing fans, of course, you're watching the very beginning of what we're seeing tonight in the Magic Mile 151. Lane, Lariah, Tarbuck, your top three. Two drivers heading down to pit road. There's Randy Fiash in the number 55. And as he heads down and in, so does Tom Wetmore. Wetmore with some minor crumpling on the front end. But in Wetmore's previous victories, we've seen that doesn't necessarily deter him. Richmond 2023, for an example, spun on pit road, ended up winning. Doesn't mean that he's down and out just because of a minor damage. Tom Wetmore's got a lot more in him in this race. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back up there as the night progresses. Randy Fiash right now gets on the way. Looks like if he had any scrapes, it's all been buffed out. His damage has been repaired, and he'll catch up to the field as we're double file once again with Ethan Lane leading the way. For those of you tuning in right now, unfortunately, there's some troubles on the Roblox side, but we're glad to have you here. Orifarius is the streamer that is due to broadcast opening game of the World Series. The link is going to be provided as soon as we have it here, folks. And it looks like the stream is up. It hasn't been posted officially, but it is set up to the time being. Ethan Lane going to lead the way. Michael Araya up high, and Nick Tarbuck there in third. Here we go again for lap number 5 and restart number 1. Lane going to be on the bottom once again. No changes on the front row, and we're going to get settled in, hopefully, for a green flag run. Lane with the jump, gets a car length advantage, and we're back at it again. Green flags out for Ethan Lane. Ethan Lane going to be leading. Michael Araya there second. Nick Tarbuck gets away, and it's going to be a 1-2-3 order, very similar to what we saw on the starting grid. Drivers are going to get back out of formation and begin racing. You'll see them side by side going to the bottom groove. There's Tom Golker in the number 77. For the time being, Tom Golker, number 77, making his first ever start toe-to-toe in the MBNA number 77. Right now, it's some of the veterans in the field, and we've seen a few very good rookies come in this season from both sides of the table. Braxton Nuis, overall, the full-time competitor in the Monday night campaign, he's done a great job overall leading the championship standings. He's made a few starts on Tuesdays. And how about the number 44's perhaps biggest rival, the number 27 of Blake Cannon. Cannon not here tonight, but he's gotten multiple victories across the 2 series. And Tom Golker right now in that number 77, well, he's doing a pretty good job in his very first starts. And for those of you tuning in who might not know FTN does this is an iRacing broadcast, and memberships for iRacing sold at iRacing.com. Currently, it's a summer discount of over 30% for all sorts of memberships. So if you want to check that out, iRacing is the home for all motorsports simulation, from stock cars and Indy cars and everything in between. And we'd love to have you guys check that out along the way. It's a completely different style, of course, of game, but it's one of the most advanced simulators, and right now, the best drivers getting the most out of it. Ethan Lane and Michael Araya, the 2 winningest drivers in this series history. Ethan Lane has a reputation for victory, and I think a track like this, New Hampshire, suits his strength. It's all about consistency and discipline, not about being flashy necessarily, but if you find the proper groove, you can exploit it beyond belief. And I think that's the most important thing for Lane. He's going to figure things out that these drivers might not. He's a driver with road to pro experience. He's been all across the world in iRacing leagues. And I think now, with that experience coming into play, you see he's got a 1-second advantage over Michael Araya, and it's still building. Let's watch on board with Nick Tarbuck and see what we can see right now as they round the final corner and make it through turns 1 and 2. Lane is going to go to the bottom groove, right by the yellow paint. Michael Araya going to be through to the second groove and go for a late apex. Nick Tarbuck going to do the exact opposite. He tries to go through the middle and then put the power down at the very end. And so Nick Tarbuck is going to be one of those drivers in third here who is going to have to learn from his competitors, maybe a little bit more experience in front of him, but Tarbuck also a multi-time winner with 3 wins this season so far. He's locked into the playoff picture, but perhaps he has a little bit more to learn with respect to this track in the Gen 4s compared to the 2 drivers just ahead. For Sim Speed Shop, Michael Araya's number 44, doing a good job ahead of the majority of the field here. But Ethan Lane is in a world of his own with a 1-second gap. One thing we're not seeing right now in the early going of this race is we're not seeing drivers go down under the apron. That is an option. No driver right now is attempting to go under that yellow line you see on your screen through the turns. But right now, that is an option. It's technically legal, and you see right there, Ethan Lane does it for the very first time. A few updates have been made to how iRacing drives at this track, and there's Cody Smith once again doing the same thing. You can try to use that apron to get more power out of the corner. You might sacrifice a little bit of speed, but the goal for the driver is just to push out and get that momentum to make your way into the next corner and then go from there, which is not easy. It's definitely all about finesse, but if you're a good driver, you can tend to get used to those things as the night goes on. Coming down the back straightaway here, Jacob Fife is going to be down and under Bobby Ross. Ross, the side-by-side battle progresses with Fife, and Jacob, league owner right now, going inside the single digits if, of course, he can get his way here. They're going to be going toe-to-toe, now battling in the middle pack of the field. Jacob Fife benefited immensely from the attrition we saw in our most recent event. The big trouble was at New Hampshire last year, the tires, and so many drivers spinning out of control with the field alongside them, and that led to carnage. Right now, most of these drivers are doing a very good job of just maintaining what they have and not being overbearing, which is simpler at a track like New Hampshire. It simply suits the driver's taste to be a little bit more conservative as the night goes on, rather than pushing beyond belief. It's most important for the time being as the number 44 of Lariah goes on to stick where he is and just keep running consistently. We've been told, the final update right now before we get official word, that the HCBBL stream is good to go and should be live. There is a link and we are going to post it right here when it is sent out. However, we've been told the broadcast has begun. So, 15 laps in here in the Octane Series. You're watching with us on FTN, and we're on standby trying to find out official news about the World Series as we move on to successive games. The game has been reset as a result of the internet troubles throughout the country, and so we'll get ourselves locked in once again, and hopefully without troubles for whoever is broadcasting from this point onward. Galen Gidman now going to see Jacob Fife slide right by. Fife stays in the mix pretty well so far. Even though Jacob didn't start inside the top 10, he's made up a total of 5 spots now, from 13th up to 8, and he is still progressing. 16 laps in out of 151. Gidman going to be 9th, and Brad Patton there in 10th. How about Bobby Ross in the 11th spot in that number 45? Hanging on nicely here, and maybe that's the end goal for these drivers, just trying to find the right way to go about the track that they're at, even if it is something they're not used to with the car. And tire wear, completely different tonight from what we saw last season. Not as sunny right now. However, the weather is not set to change. It's going to be sizzling all throughout the night. Track temperature of 106 degrees Fahrenheit, ambient temperature of 74 degrees, and even though the ambient temperature for the fans in the grandstands, well, it's not half bad, those tires are going to be burnt up. Right now, Nick Tarbuck going to stay on the back end of Michael Araya side by side. You can see the 44 now moving a little bit further up top, trying to go a groove and then some higher. And the link is in for those of you waiting for the World Series. The link has been posted. We're sending it to you right now to assure there's no trouble for the remainder of this event. I know a lot of you guys are here for multiple events, and we hope you stick around. The racing's getting good here, but there's a lot of multi-sport action throughout the simulation world, and the broadcast link has been published. Now Nick Tarbuck going to be looking to the inside line in the Chevrolet Impala. He'll go diving deep, and he's going to push that Michael Araya car right out to the wayside, and look at that. Tarbuck now up on top. He'll get into second, and with the exception of the all-powerful Ethan Lane, now going to be the number 4 with the advantage, taking it through turns 1 and 2. Sam Nieto going to be 4th, Don Stevenson 5th, Nicholas Ward in 6th, and Cody Smith then in 7th with 8th. Falling in the hands of Jacob Fife and 9th, then Brad Patton. Galen Goodman 10th and Bobby Ross 11th, 20 laps in out of 151. And so now the Magic Mile 151 sees a dominant leader. The rest of the field very far spread out, so let's catch up on some battles all throughout the pack. Matt Jonas and Kyle Cooper right now. They're in the bottom half of this mid-pack formation we're seeing right now. And a driver like Kyle Cooper or Matt Jonas, both of them are in the playoff picture. However, not as main forces. In all honesty, their most important factor right now is where they play in to the bubble. The top 15 is the driver group that we're looking at for the rest of the season. Brian McFerrin in the Octane Series finds himself on the bubble as he is in the Integrity Ignite Series. Matt Jonas currently going to be in 25th, and Kyle Cooper right now, well, the number 73 team, if we look at their numbers, they're going to be right around the bunch that's in that whole bubble situation. Cooper on the high side of the bubble, though, in 9th. Kyle so far has made a total of 17 starts, all 17 completed races so far, and currently has 1 top 5 and 8 top 10s to show for it. He's been a quietly solid driver. Maybe not the most impressive race in, race out, but he's shown consistently that he deserves to be up at the front of the field in this series and get those chances to win. Maybe not performing in those circumstances, but it's all the more tricky When things happen, of course, with such a competitive field, and Cooper admittedly now down in the lower spot than he'd like to be, in 16th. 18th place is Tom Wetmore, and right now the Roadhouse Racing crew not doing the best. 18th place for Tom Wetmore. John Steele going to be in 20th, and as it stands, they're both outside the top 15, not doing the greatest. Brad Patton in 9th, he looks low, Jacob Fife up top, and here we have it. Jacob looking for another move, but it's a move to stay in position as Brad Patton from 20th makes the move up to 8th. He's up 12 positions, the most of any driver in the field. Brad Patton now going to make that move around the outside corner. And there you have it. Brad up to 8th, and now his next target would be Cody Smith. One win in the book so far for Brad Patton, who has been racing on hard mode throughout this year, and that's been sort of his niche. He's tried, instead of doing the traditional method of course, driving from a qualifying spot, he has not taken a qualifying run all throughout this campaign. Regardless, of course, of if he could or if he should, Brad's decided to make things a little bit trickier and instead gone for an alternate route. He's decided to push himself to new limits, and he's gotten several top 5 finishes and a race win to show for it, and perhaps one of the most determined and dedicated drivers in this series, Brad Patton. He's gotten himself up to 8th once again. Michael Lariah remains on the quarter panel now of Nick Tarbuck. Nick makes his way up to 2nd. Lariah going to drop back into position number 3. And it's a position swap in the podium. Both drivers started into the top 3. And that is currently where they remain. It looks like they're going to stay there for the majority of the race, the way things are looking. Early advantage for Ethan Lane. He's 3 seconds up on the field, and Ethan Lane indeed, he's still gaining time. That time through at the line, Ethan Lane ran a 31.074, and further back, Nick Tarbuck ran a 31.303. Take a look on board from Michael Araya as he chases down the 4. .28 laps out of 151. So far, Michael Araya still going to be 3rd, and admittedly not gaining here, as you can see, slipping away as Nick Tarbuck made the pass, and he has kept himself up there and is still moving in a positive direction. Brad Patton going to be in 8th, and he has gotten up to the back bumper of Cody Smith. Just 5 laps ago, the gap between these two was about a second, and now it looks like Smith burning up those tires. Not in a good position to gain. Matter of fact, it looks like now Cody Smith is losing time quick. The wanted goon Chevrolet now on the back bumper. Looks low. All the way to the bottom side, almost by the paint groove. And Cody Smith, with respect, goes up top, not going to give any trouble. And all drivers here should be able to get away scot-free. Racing down the back straightaway. Brad Patton looking low. Cody Smith right up top, side by side through the corner again. And it looks like now Patton has the advantage. The number 7 car is in 7th, and it only took him about 20% of the race to do that naturally under green. Patton is one of the quicker drivers, but he's not at all the quickest on the field. It's a little bit tricky to really run that metric through for the 7 because he is mired in traffic and he's still actively making passes, but for the time being he's really not at all the quickest driver per se. That title would still go to Ethan Lane. That's how quick Lane has been lap after lap. It just goes to show Brad Patton right now, he's done a great job, but there's still some drivers who are managing it even better. Coming across the line, here's a fairer assumption. 31.36 for Brad Patton. He was the 2nd fastest driver on the circuit. The only one quicker is your leader in Ethan Lane, and I can't imagine he's at full send right now, but he's doing something right that every other driver is missing. Let's take a lap alongside him. Take it from one of our higher angles and see exactly how he goes through the corners and approaches them lap after lap. Up on the high side, coming into turn 1, he'll go all the way down to the apron. Look at that. It looks like he's going for that apron groove, and it's clearly the preference right now for the number 54. And you saw him dive there deep without hesitation. Coming down the back straight, let's see, does Ethan go for it again? The apron line is the best line on the track right now, and I'm sure with Ethan Lane's experience, he knows it. And there we have it, 32 laps in out of 151. Ethan Lane has a ticket to success, and it is a groove of all grooves. Number 54, Ethan Lane, running the apron, and it has played out quite well so far. Let's look at the back of the field right now and see exactly what is going on. For the time being, you can see there the number 14 of Bobby Terrell working down the back straight, 33 laps in out of 151. Now trying to maintain position for Terrell, that's the goal. Tom Wetmore going to be on his back bumper. Admittedly, Wetmore with that damage still remains in 19th here, not getting the break he required for any successful run, and he still finds himself in a very tricky spot. Bobby Terrell going to be in 18th. Matt Jonas trying to now hold on to that spot, although it looks like he will not, at least for the time being. Side by side again, and neck off the corner. Terrell, with a little bit of a right side scrape, will not stop his stride, and they come off dead even again through the corner. Looks like now both drivers have met their match, and they're going to be going right at each other up high here. Tom Wetmore gets away, and Matt Jonas is going to have to fade back. The number 15 now going to be lying behind all of his respective competitors. And there are a few drivers already in jeopardy of going one lap down. Let's discuss those who look like now they might be on that verge. Here right now is the number 22 of John Steele. John Girvan was already put a lap down, and as we look now, yeah, John Steele going to give up that spot quickly. Randy Fiash would be up next, but Ethan Lane all of a sudden has put another lapper in the books. Ethan Lane in a real good spot right now, especially when you consider there's so much time remaining. An official statement regarding that initial incident, it looks like Matt Jonas had a shifter freeze up, which led to initial contact. Coming down a pit road this time by Cody Smith making his way in. Let's talk stints, let's talk strategy. Overall, 4 tire sets allotted to all drivers, plus the one that, of course, every driver starts with on their car. So drivers have 5 sets tonight. They have a lot on the table for them to utilize, and it looks like most of which are deciding to go for a little bit of a longer run. I think Cody Smith might be trying to get this short stint out of the way so he can go long later. It's a gamble, but based on the way these drivers are hanging around the track right now, it's the exact opposite of what we saw last season. It looks like control is going to be prioritized, and it's going to be found throughout the circuit, and moreover, you see Jacob Fife here with Bobby Ross and company. You don't see that squealing off the exit of the corner. It just is not happening consistently. Instead, for Jacob Fife, Galen Gidman, Bobby Ross, Brad Patton, drivers who I'd say have been racing relatively hard to make up spots, they're not out of control out of turn 4. Even if they take it hard, it looks like there's some level of grip, some level of control, and I don't think we're going to see these drivers really going all out. The next gens, it was a little bit trickier. They drive completely different. Right now, see there, number 45 machine going down, ducking and covering under Galen Gidman, trying to make a spot up, just can't quite get it there, and Bobby remains in 10th. As it stands, 45 machine going to hang tight, and it looks like in a good spot to just be on the back bumper of the number 9, his companion making his way around. And it looks like now Galen Gidman a little bit loose, but you can see easily recoverable as Bobby Ross gets in the wall. Discussing the tires and the next gens once again. The next gens, their big problem was perhaps not the horsepower. They were lower horsepower, that package anyway, but instead the way the drivers had to wheel them. You're a little bit more restricted with the new system of composite bodies and very unified driving styles in the next gen, where here in the Gen 4s it's a little bit more free. You can make a lot of in-car adjustments, you can do so on the fly. It's a little bit more challenging to make those right tweaks with the next gen car, and as such, if you're not hitting those grooves right with the setups in mind, you are going to be all over the place, and that's what caught a lot of drivers out last season. That's what continues to. The next gens are tricky at this track, and there's a reason select drivers all throughout New Hampshire's history, such as Eric Almirola or Christopher Bell, very recently the both of them have become so good at the track. It takes a different style of driving, maybe something we don't see at any other circuit. There's very few that are comparable. The banking, maybe like the Milwaukee Mile, but at the same time, it's a different track shape. Maybe Pocono and the one in Milwaukee-inspired corner. But again, Pocono is such a versatile track. You don't see low speeds like this. Admittedly, we're only hitting about 140 miles an hour, and you do have a lot of opportunities for passing which are not present at this track. The question more so becomes, you can't compare New Hampshire How do you get better at New Hampshire? And I'm sure some drivers have put more training time than others into this race, but moreover, it just comes with those practice laps because track conditions play a major role. Bobby Ross going to get very squeamish off the corner, and he's going to bunch up the field just a little bit more. Track temp is still 106 Fahrenheit, 42 laps in out of 151. Ethan Lane coming across the line to put Randy Fiash one lap down. He'll get by Randy, go right up top, and he's going to leave the number 55 in the dust. Up next would be Matt Jonas and company. Matt runs right now in 18th. And we might be looking so far an Ethan Lane masterclass, but never say never. Ethan Lane is disconnected out of sessions while he's leading with less than 25 laps to go. He knows disaster in racing. He knows what it feels like to lose a race, even if it wasn't your driving that got you to that point. And I think for Ethan Lane, that experience, not a positive one, but it's something you learn from. And as a driver, learning is the most important thing, regardless of circumstance. I think Ethan Lane, of all drivers, will understand that, and he's taken all that experience once again into account. The oval strategy for New Hampshire is much different. There is a roval. It's completely different. It's actually an exterior roval. But, of course, most drivers know this four-turn circuit, which has been here for the better part of 35 years. The apron strategy, you don't see it in real life often. That's for a few reasons, but on iRacing, there's no rule against it. It's admittedly surprising carrying through the corners with no banking works out like it does. Lane is risking it ever so slightly by getting in the grass or maybe making contact with something else like the blue cone. That blue cone might look small, but it has a lot of dastardly consequences on iRacing. Perhaps one of the biggest troubles drivers have faced. Even in the Integrity Night Series, you do not want to get that caught in the front grille. It will bring you down, and it'll bring you up in temperature, which could cause a major problem. Brad Patton has been eyeing this pass for 25 laps, and now he's getting a chance at it. He'll go low on Nicholas Ward, and it will make the move quickly. And an effortless pass there for the number 7. He brings Jacob Fife right there with, and barreling down the back straightaway once again. Here we go. 46 laps in out of 151. Brad Patton has made his way by quite successfully here. Don Stevenson going to be in 5th, and he's going to maintain the spot he's got right now, racing down the straight and getting by some lappers. So far, the effort from all drivers commendable to stay green in the opening portion of this race. Although it looks like now competition heating up between the mid-packers. Here's another example, Ross Cato and Brian McFerrin. Cato came alive at the short circuits late in the season where his do-or-die victory at Martinsville. It's his first and only win so far. It propelled him to championship 4 status. Can Ross Cato again get himself a podium? He got one last week in the All-Star race, and maybe that's a good omen to bring into the rest of this season. Admittedly, perhaps a sophomore slump for the number 12 after such a fantastic career opener. I can't imagine Cato's going to settle where he is right now. He's got a lot more in the tank as a driver, and we've seen it before. It just looks like this Gen 4 machine is not really suited to his strengths, and it looks like now Don Stevenson goes down and in, 48 laps in. This gives us a better idea of the picture for the strategy tonight. Expect a 2-stopper to be prominent. 50 and 100 are the average pit cycles expected for drivers to hit, and so Don Stevenson's going to come in rather quickly, and he's going to hit one as soon as possible. He'll make it down a pit road here, and so pit road is busy for the first time tonight. Stevenson will open the floodgates and expect the majority of the pack to come around as we set our sights on the next coming laps and the opening pit cycle of the day. Up top, Ross Cato, Brian McFerrin right behind. Take a lap on board from the deck lid here, the 07, and you'll see that the back end is getting filled by Ross Cato. He's making it rather competitive here in the tail end, and it's still looking for a chance to get by. Coming down to the inside here, Ross Cato only had to work on it for a lap for a chance to dedicate himself to the bottom side, but he'll back off here as more drivers are dedicating themselves to pit road. Sam Nieto going to be down and in, as is Jacob Fife, 5th and 6th respectively. They're making their way around, and they're doing so without much trouble. Galen Gidman now makes his way through 15th, and he'll drop down and in. Pit road is going to get busy from here. Drivers entering the floodgates, and so expect more competitive pit stops in the coming laps as we make our way around once again. The opening third going to be out of the way, and now leaders are going to have to understand it's about time to head to pit road. First off, here comes Ross Cato, number 12 machine coming in with Bobby Ross. Ross rather slow on the entry, but slow and steady gets him in. And Ross Cato comes right there with Bobby Terrell is additionally going to signal, and all drivers come together at once, making into the bigger picture unscathed. As long as these drivers hang on without any trouble on this green flag cycle, we should be fine to go all the way throughout this race. And pit road might be the biggest deterrent to such a problem. Of course, if you see drivers coming in, you might end up stacking up and you might bring out the yellow flag. We've seen a number of pit road incidents before. You don't want to see one again, and I'm sure the leaders would like to avoid it. Brian McFerrin just made his way down and in, and now Ethan Lane decides to come by again. Lane is going to go by on the straightaway. Brian McFerrin enters with Kyle Cooper, and it looks like Matt Jonas there as well, alongside John Giervon and John Steele. That leaves us now with a total of about 10 drivers, give or take, who have not gone down to pit road. And Cody Smith is doing something differently. He will cycle out as your net leader overall, and that's because he decided entirely to go about it in an alternate approach. Doing so, rather than going down to about lap 50, he went down at about lap 37. So, doing something so differently, well, it's going to be tricky to see whether or not that's the right call. He'll have to make one extra pit stop, and the intention when drivers do this 3-stop strategy or something of that nature is typically to try and push a little bit harder, worry about saving less. Racing down the back straightaway, 55 laps in at 151. The magic mile is beginning to come alive tonight, and you can see here Cody Smith looking to work some magic. If he wants to win this race, I'm sure that's exactly what he's going to be reliant on. 56 laps in at a 151. He's your net leader, waiting on a few more drivers here, such as Evan Ludy. Ludy coming back for what is only his second start of the season. We talked about Ludy in his first start. He had a good qualifying run, started inside the top 10, and look where he is right now. Admittedly, he's one lap down to Ethan Lane in a few seconds if Lane gets to him. All things considered, though, Evan getting some time up in the front of the field, and that'll be all for naught as he comes in with Tom Wetmore and Tom Golker. Rookies coming alongside a veteran, and Wetmore pulls in with a 77 just ahead, and pit road remains active. This will bring us down to 4 drivers we're waiting for. Michael Araya staying right there with Nick Tarbuck no longer. Brad Patton fights Sam Nieto, and Ethan Lane now has a 7-second lead on net second place, and Nick Tarbuck down and in. Ethan Lane signals. Nobody else has made the official signal just yet, and it looks like Ethan Lane came down and stays on the track. Goes to show how low he's been going every lap here with no official verdict. It's hard to tell who wants in and who doesn't. Nick Tarbuck going to come across the line yet again, deciding to keep himself out and opting away from going to pit road. I think we might be seeing an attempt for a different strategy. Instead of the 3-stop, or maybe even instead of the 2-stop, there is one additional option. It's risky, unlikely to play out, and I don't know why these drivers are going for it so aggressively if Eli cars end up spinning and almost getting in the way. The field will make it out of the way regardless. Enter the 1-stopper. Drivers would have to go about 15 minutes, or when it comes down to the gallon marker, they would have to save 3 or 4 gallons, I would figure, to make their way around and get to that halfway marker. There's no chance, unless they've been saving since the jump, that it's going to happen. I don't understand if Ethan Lane can make it, or if these drivers are really trying for it, but to be out now for over 60 laps and not have a purpose, I strongly doubt that's the case here, and we got 4 drivers, and it's fitting, 3 of which have won a race this season, trying something different, trying something a little bit more risky, and with the exception of Nicholas Ward, they all have practically nothing to lose, and they're all locked into the championship picture. Ward might be throwing out the Hail Mary here to see if he's the man who can pull it off, but Ethan Lane all of a sudden running 32-second laps after being the fastest man on the track for so long. Looks like he's still going to stay out here. Coming to lap number 61, keep your eyes peeled. We might be looking at a one-stop strategy from your big four drivers. Ethan Lane, Nick Tarbuck, Michael Araya, Nicholas Ward. Those are the four drivers you have to keep your eyes peeled for. No, Ethan Lane will not go for the one-stop strategy. Simply was not possible. He'll come down and in after 61 complete, and he gave it a valiant effort, but it just didn't look like it was meant to be. Nick Tarbuck now going to be coming down and in. Nicholas Ward decides to stay out a little bit longer. Ethan Lane, Nick Tarbuck together. Michael Araya is now going to try to beat the undercut and go just one lap longer. Try to get the slight advantage here and then pull out and ahead for this next stint to try to get the overall edge on the final. Now Michael Araya holds the race lead alone, and for the first time all night long, someone not named Ethan Lane is at the top of the board. It's been a long time coming for Araya to get a chance to lead today, and he'll go across the stripe once again to make it lap number 63, and he's now going to try to stretch that fuel window all the way out so he can put himself back together for that final run and get back to it. Michael Araya up high, Nick Tarbuck down low. That is the difference between old tires and new, and a lot of times when we see drivers pass by their rivals and let new rubber, it's just about the perfect signal to make it down and low. For the time being in here, looks like Michael Araya has decided not to go in. He's just going to stay out here and still keep on driving. He is pushing it much differently from what we expected. He's the only driver now on this strategy. Even Nicholas Ward gave in and cycled around. Now, it comes down to whether or not Araya can go longer. Nick Tarbuck, he went through several laps ago, and Michael Araya will budge. He'll make his way down to pit road now after 64 laps. Enter new race leader. Ethan Lane, set to take back the throne and find himself now leading the way. At the head of the field, Ethan Lane again going to find himself the top driver, and today has been fantastic for the number 54 crew. Overall, from start to this point, the midpoint of the race anyway, he has been the dominant man, and there's no denying that Ethan Lane has the speed to go out here and win most every race, but it comes down to execution, which has admittedly been the weak point of this entire campaign. He's now finds himself below Nick Tarbuck in the championship standings in third, and Tarbuck's had a great season, that is no doubt, but Lane has the most wins of anyone on this campaign. He has the most wins of anyone in the series history, and he still doesn't find himself the leader of the championship standings, solely because whenever he doesn't win, he ends up out of the race, and it simply is unsustainable. With 6 races to go in the regular season, you cannot afford to keep making those mistakes again and again and again, and it looks like with Ethan getting that chance to reset and put himself back in a perhaps better position to be racing competitively, well, he's done a pretty good job so far. This would be his 8th win of the season if it comes to fruition. Win number 8. Sounds real good for a season that's only had 18 races so far, which would mean that there have only been 10 races Ethan Lane has not won, and of those 10 races, well, 9 of which have been won by either Michael Araya or Nick Tarbuck. The only outlier so far is Blake Cannon. Cannon is the only driver besides the big 3 to win all season long. You talk about parity, admittedly this season we've had almost the exact opposite. The best drivers come to play, they come to win, and the only real example of parity this season could have been Daytona. Nick Tarbuck won there, and he set up the big 3 lineup pretty well by getting that all unpredictable victory. That was his first of 3, and then from there, Ethan Lane, he's pulled together for 7. Michael Araya has gotten through for 6. and Blake Cannon sits with the final one. It's been all about the dominant drivers this season who have pulled themselves through and have done so without assistance. They have been on top, they have remained on top, and they hope to do so from flag to flag each and every race. Let's talk right now about Nick Tarbuck, who finds himself in 7th in a little bit of a fierce fight. Jacob Fife and Cody Smith. Going to be 3 wide now, but Cody Smith on the top side. Tires are getting older, and it looks like now as drivers race down the back straight, well, simply put, not much more that can be done. Cody Smith in that number 18 machine is going to now be a little bit further back of both, losing 2 spots in 1 lap. Tarbuck makes it by, as does Jacob Fife, and to do so rather quickly. Really didn't look like any hesitation on behalf of either driver, and we'll ride on board with Cody Smith briefly to see what's going on inside the cockpit. That time by, Cody Smith several tenths of a second slower than the drivers he was surrounded by. Jacob Fife able to pull a half second on that lap alone. Smith right now, admittedly, he's having a lot of trouble keeping up with the drivers ahead of him. How about Nick Tarbuck right there in 5th? He goes down and under on Brad Patton. Now he's going to try to make his move up to overall 4th, because right now Tarbuck has the youngest set of rubber of anyone in the field, and he's been making a surge once again. Ethan Lane is still 8.5 seconds ahead of him, admittedly, but if there's anyone who can get up there to 2nd with the tires he's got, I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Tarbuck made the necessary moves now, since more than half of this race is still ahead of us. Why not go for it? And it looks like Tarbuck has been given the signal, and he will keep on pushing. And no trouble so far for Nick Tarbuck in the number 4. Sam Nieto going to be in 3rd, and it looks like now his time in that 3rd spot might be running out. And here we go. Tarbuck is going to be going deep. He slides to the bottom side. He's got grip, and he's going to come through without any trouble. He's just about stuck to the racing surface, which admittedly no other driver can say, and that advantage proves pivotal. Another pass. He's going to make it through on another lap. And now Don Stevenson, who got himself up to 2nd with some strategy finesse, he's in danger too. Let's see what happens here. Don gonna be up top. Down low is Nick Tarbuck. And here comes Tarbuck looking right to the bottom side. Quickly moving. And as such, the number 4 keeps it side by side. Advantage down the back straightaway gonna be slightly in the favor now of Don Stevenson. And this is what it's all about. The dying laps of this race coming very soon. The final pit stop is due to be up next for a majority of these drivers. And another quick pass going to be completed. Nick Tarbuck up to the runner-up spot. He will currently hold his own in 2nd. 9 seconds behind race leader Ethan Lane. Lane has just been unbelievable tonight. 9-second advantage in a green flag run. We went to New Hampshire in a very similar vein about a year ago in the 4 Cup Series. James Thurston had a very similar performance. He dominated that race, led more than half the laps, and by the time the race was over, in a 35-lap stint, he led by 15 seconds. Now Lane has had to go through with a very competitive field who admittedly have not given up nor given in, but he has a 9-second lead at the halfway marker. If he were to extend that by double, is possible, it would be 18 seconds by the time this race is done. The field would be almost entirely 1 lap down, and right now, 18 seconds behind is Nicholas Ward, and then on back. So that's 9th and further behind, and that would be including everyone in the field going 10 seconds further behind, because Nick Tarbuck right now is 9 seconds back. So yeah, it would be destruction for the field if Lane were to double the gap he has. Right now, he's done a good job in this first leg. With 75 laps to go, though, work still needs to be done for him to make his way around and power through in this second sector. 75 laps remaining. Halftime has been reached, and now we're coming down to the next level of this race. No pun intended, we have strategy calls to still make. We have battles for position still in progress, and it looks like Cody Smith for Next Level Racing, who would have guessed it, he just went down to pit road. And we'd like to talk a little bit more about Next Level Racing while we have your time. Next Level Racing provides high quality sim racing performance products for dedicated sim racers who deserve nothing but the best. For more information about their product and the wonderful ways that you can support the Integrity Racing League community, check out nextlevelracing.com and use promo code INTEGRITY on checkout for all of the highest quality sim racing hardware. No matter what simulation you use, no matter your discipline, Next Level Racing has you covered. And we'll be right back after the following messages, courtesy of our friends at Next Level Racing. "71 laps remaining. Cody Smith back on the track, and so we move on. Cody Smith's pit window just came and went, but the majority of the field still is waiting. 82 laps in out of 151 here with 70 laps remaining on the clock, and currently Ethan Lane holds his own with an advantage of now nearly 10 seconds on the field. Let's talk about the rest of the pack, though, as they continue to battle each other to wits' end. Brad Patton now going to be right behind Sam Nieto, and talk about a close battle. Well, we've got one right here. It's a train of drivers, all competitive in their own right, who are still looking for their first victory in the Octane Series. Brad Patton, well, of course, he has one in the Ignite Series, but in the Tuesday Night Tour, he's yet to find one. He's been racing on hard mode, as we say, and from 20th up to 4th, he is so far your biggest mover. It simply goes to show that in a driver's position, skill matters most, and Brad Patton's skill cannot be denied. He's made his way up now into what could be the podium, so long as he makes it by Sam Nieto here, which is never a given, but Sam is not going to back down quickly, although I can't imagine he has much to hold on against Brad Patton if Brad has been saving his tires better. And that's what this whole race has come down to. Tire saving. If you save your tires well, you should be in a good position to go all the way and get yourself out of trouble. If you haven't, that is the big difference. So failing to save tires is effectively failing to keep your race in check, and if you fail to do that, you're in a real bad spot, and as such, just going to keep losing positions. We've seen a few drivers fall down the ladder today. Overall, I think the biggest loser with respect to position would be from 9th to 18th, Cody Smith. For now, he's doing something different, but overall, Tom Golker's gone from 7th to 16th, so admittedly he got caught out on pit road, and that has all but ended his race, competitively speaking, as Don Steven makes it by. John Giervon now chasing Michael Araya. Looking on board with the 47 to Don Stevenson, let's compare and contrast the differences between a few drivers and their racing lines from the perspective of the driver. Looking now at how some drivers are beginning to take Ethan Lane's approach and just try to tweak it, find their own angle with it, try to get the best line, and then make sure they can run it even better. It's never easy when you find yourself in a position trying to compete with the very best, but it looks like some drivers are trying to learn from it, and there's Don Stevenson doing exactly that. He's committed himself now to running that apron line as opposed to doing something a little bit more traditional, and as such, you see him here and now, running in the 6th position, has not been gaining yet on Michael Araya, but perhaps this is also a method to save some tire as the battle persists just ahead of him. Now down to the inside line, Michael Araya going to try to make a move here on Brad Patton. He goes low, and he should be able to make something happen successfully here. Brad deciding to go a little bit higher, and there you have it. Once again, making his way around It looks like Michael Araya up to 4th, and Patton going to be passed ever so slightly. Very slight motions back and forth between all of these drivers, and that is the bigger picture that all these drivers in the field have to keep their eyes on. Aggression levels, do they change? We've gone nearly 100 laps, and in all honesty, I have not seen any signs of aggression necessarily. If anything, we've seen more so those signs of being calm at the track from start to finish. Very good to see drivers, of course, trying to figure themselves out, but lap after lap, you gotta wonder when they decide instead to start going all out for themselves, all take and no give. It's been a very patient track with a lot of patient drivers, but you can't expect patience to last forever at the racetrack, especially with a win on the line. Although the win might not be on the line right now, something were to happen with Ethan Lane, it would be all bets off for the victory, and there's a lot of drivers, I would say 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, who really have a chance for it. 63 laps to go. Ethan Lane up in front, and here's another battle. A little bit more progression from Brian McFerrin within 2/10 now of Ross Cato. Both of these drivers have been running solidly today. Nothing too out of the ordinary, nothing too spectacular, but more than that, they've been running solid, and sometimes you just need a solid points day to put yourself in a good spot for the next race, and the race after that, and so on and so forth. Ross Cato is 7th in the championship standings. Brian McFerrin, we mentioned, he is 15th right now, and he is on that bubble. He needs good races. He needs a top 10, and a top 10 will do good for him no matter what's going on. So good for him to be in this position right now, running solidly and quite calm for the time being. Admittedly, looks like for Brian McFerrin, he's in good hands, and so is Ross Cato, both of which looking to lock themselves in as we are just a few races away from the playoffs here. Galen Gidman going to be right there with Tom Wetmore, looking at them go side by side. Galen going to be up top, and Tom Wetmore now down to the bottom. Wetmore, despite all his struggles, is no longer in the bottom half of the top 20. He's now right around the middle, hovering in 13th, and trying to keep himself ahead of Galen Gidman, who be in 14th. If there were to be a yellow flag, I think Tom Wetmore would have gotten much more of that damage repaired. He has not gotten that chance, and instead remains with 60 laps to go off the lead lap and out of trouble with respect to trying to go into an incident, but he's in trouble trying to find race victory. So it's been a calm race ever since that first wreck, but for Tom Wetmore, definitely not the race he would like, and Roadhouse Racing going to have to, tonight at least, take a step back and hope for next week and then on out to be much better. Wetmore now going to be trying to run that apron line on Kyle Cooper. Now the number 73 machine goes high in response, and multiple different drivers responding differently to these new strategies that are becoming more and more apparent as the night has gone on. Wetmore to the bottom side. He'll look low, and now Cooper's going to be right there, up top again. It looks like Tom Wetmore figured something out in the last few laps. He was getting swallowed up by some of those leaders, and now he's going to find himself once again in a good spot to maybe compete against some of the drivers he's going right against. Here's Nick Tarbuck, and it looks like Nick might get in the fold. There's number 4 coming into the frame. He's got Tom Wetmore right ahead of him. Let's see what he does here. Keep in mind, Nick Tarbuck is a lap ahead of Tom Wetmore and the drivers now, Kyle Cooper included respectively. It looks like he's going to decide to take that swooping motion down to the bottom, and as such, little comes of it, and Tarbuck makes the pass without much to worry about. Brad Patton, with 57 laps to go, decides to make himself known in this pack. And you can see Sam Nieto trying to block multiple lanes. There's Evan Ludi, the rookie, and Don Stevenson now finding himself in the fray. Side by side, maybe even getting close to 3-wide action here. And here you have it again. With 57 to go, some of your mid-pack contenders getting a little feistier here. And Evan Ludi right beside Don Stevenson here, trying to look for a break. He ends up breaking high, gives some room low to Stevenson, Sam Nieto, and there's Tom Golker running amongst each other. Golker, Ludi, Lappers. The rest of them on the bottom side still fighting for, technically speaking, the race lead. And so they're going to have priority on the bottom side and decide to use it however they'd like. It looks like Sam Nieto's trying to run that middle groove, not trying to go down to the bottom or even the apron as some of his competitors have. He said looks to be a little bit more comfortable running traditionally here, which It's been the line for several decades now, trying to go high and then low on the banking. Who would have thought the apron would have become the most successful method in iRacing? Well, until the last few years, that wasn't the case, but it came about a year and a half ago. Perhaps a little bit earlier, but in the early 2023 builds, changes to the way some of these stock cars drove, they came in mass. You might remember that the Truck Series got a recent refresh, as did the Xfinity Series, as did the Gen 4 stock car coming to existence with this package. So it's not necessarily a classic thing to do here on the platform, but with these Gen 4 stock cars it is applicable, as Sam Nieto sees Don Stevenson slide right up and ahead of him, and that is a block that could have gone south and fast, but it looks like Stevenson makes the pass regardless, and with 54 laps to go, he will get away with the position and slide right into 4th place, and now it's going to be side by side Sam Nieto and Brad Patton again with 53 to go. The Magic Mile 151 comes down to this. A few battles for position. Your leaders have gotten away, and Ethan Lane remains the all-dominant driver of the day with the down-low machine. That's Sam Nieto. He decides to cut low and nearly get up in Jacob Fife's face, almost looking like he was committed to pit road half a lap late. And Jacob Fife now going to make it by on the high side, not to be deterred by that errant decision. Number 36, and he makes it through yet again. And for Jacob Fife, he's done a real good job, of course, of putting himself in nice positions all throughout the race, even though he didn't start up in front. We mentioned he got into the top 10 as early as 20 laps in, and while the climb slowly but surely has been it's been a delicate one, definitely doesn't want to overstep himself, he's been able to make it up here and almost in top 5 contention. At the line this time by, he's in the top 5 because someone just went down to pit road. That someone is Brad Patton. He'll be joined by Kyle Cooper, and so pit road comes through once again. Number 54 of Ethan Lane leads the way still as we come down, only 50 laps remaining. Now we find out whether or not our leader chose to go in early this time around as a result of going long last time, or instead they'll try to keep on pushing it. Nicholas Ward stays out, but Jacob Fife and Sam Nieto both do not. And now as they make their way in respectively, it looks like two fighting for position up front have dropped in. And there's some of the early leading contenders to go for such a move. We'll see who responds next as the calls to action are being made. Michael Araya across the line, going to be side by side with Galen Gidman. It looks like right there, he's going to make it by Galen Gidman yet again and decide to pull through with ease. Don Stevenson looking low to pit road. He'll come in by himself in the number 47, and it looks like very little trouble for him making his way through as Ethan Lane just gets by the lapper of Eli Cars and does so without any trouble either. And that's been the big story of this race. Without any trouble. Most drivers have been able to get through things clearly and quickly after that lap 1 incident, and a big group of drivers come in, the mass exodus if you will. There's Galen Gidman, there's Bobby Terrell, Evan Ludi and Tom Golker. The rookies also come down together, and they're going to come through in a bunch now, leaving about 10 drivers still up in front who have yet to come in. We take a lap on board with someone who is due to come in very soon, and that is going to be Ross Cato, and he'll be passing through turns 1 and 2 this time by. We'll see if he makes the call down and in this time around. Matt Jonas just disconnected, mind you, and Cato looks to be signaling very soon to come in. The call this time around is not confirmed, and as he throws right by the apron through 3 and 4 once again, it looks like Ross decides to stay out. Let's ride on board with him for a lap here. Cato running solid laps right now, the 31.9 second range. It looks like the tires are definitely shredded for him, running 50 plus on this stint, but it's tolerable, at least for the time being. I don't think he's going to be done and done without having his say, which he does. He'll come down to pit road voluntarily with 46 laps to go, and making it in is going to be a quick breeze down and in, with Nick Tarbuck now assuming the second spot and Ethan Lane being the net race leader. 46 laps to go, coming down to what could be 45 laps remaining. And Nicholas Ward now going to be third. Ward, quiet all night, has had some signs of maybe running his alternate strategy, although he's been relatively on sync with the tires and such. He's done it a little bit different, and I think that's the Nicholas Ward flavor that is once again tried and tried once more in each and every race. He does things slightly different, but still has himself in a nice position to go lap in, lap out, and just try to do something different. The alternate strategies, they've helped him before. Now it's all about executing at the end as Ward gets passed by Ethan Lane, and now there are only two drivers on the lead lap. The only other one is Nick Tarbuck, 12 seconds back. Lane is in full control now. 44 laps remaining as the leaders come across the line again. Ethan Lane is so far out in ahead right now, he's got very little to worry about with respect to strategy. He just has to pull home and pilot this car through these laps as if, of course, he can't get wrecked, which, of course, he can't, and that's going to be the main goal right now. He's in a good position for the time being just to hang on and get the job over with. 54 machine goes down to the apron again, and Lane hangs on, lap in, lap out, as the caution flies for the second time today. The cause is Kyle Cooper. Yellow flag is out, and we're going to take an instant replay as we're going to have a short sprint to finish this race. Cooper brings out the yellow flag, an unexpected one at that, and here's the replay as our second caution of the night is brought out in the final leg of this event. Take a look at that, loose off of 4, and he gets it saved admittedly, but you can't back it up on the track. Although Eli Carswood is in a similar spot, the call on the field is a caution is out, and so we're pacing again for the second time tonight. So as we bring you back live on FTN here to see exactly what's going on, Kyle Cooper once again getting bundled up. If there's any damage, it's going to be on the tires. It shouldn't be anything too crazy there from the number 73. I can't imagine Kyle Cooper's in too much trouble as Ethan Lane comes down and in, and so does Nick Tarbuck. That could be race changing because they stayed out. Everyone else very recently just went in. Maybe Ethan Lane right now not a shoo-in for the victory any longer. We might see a different race winner this season as two drivers coming in as one. There's Ethan Lane, there's Nick Tarbuck, and they got no choice but to make their way in here and now. The field gonna leave them not in the dust. As you can see, there's Ethan Lane running in net third, but it's gonna be tricky now to see where they come out. Coming across the line here, top two make their way back out, and it looks like they are still consider the leaders. They got that free pit stop. And take a look at that. Everyone else getting a chance to get back on the same lap. But for Ethan Lane and Nick Tarbuck, they're going to find themselves still at the top of the board. We have a little bit of time here, so we're going to get through this for the time being under yellow and bring you your final Next Level Racing promotional breaks of the day. For high-quality sim racing performance products used by dedicated sim racers who deserve nothing but the best, visit nextlevelracing.com and use promo code INTEGRITY on checkout to support the Integrity Racing League's official premier partner. We'll be right back with uninterrupted coverage from here with 40 laps to go. You're watching the Magic Mile 151 exclusively on FTN, and we'll return to continue the action here from the virtual Loudon, New Hampshire. 39 laps to go, make it 38 this time by. The majority of the field gets put back on the lead lap. Pit road is going to have a little bit more time, and so is the pace car, so we'll have one additional pit stop or for some drivers who need it, and one additional pace lap to accommodate for this entire shuffle up. Ethan Lane going to lead, Nick Tarbuck second, Evan Ludi decides to drop down to pit road there as you saw, so it looks like he will make the call down and in and take that extra pit stop opportunity that was presented. 38 laps to go this time by, and it's going to be 37 laps to go when we get back to business here. Ethan Lane, the man in charge, Nick Tarbuck second, Nick Warden third, and Cody Smith then fourth. Brad Patton rounds out the top 5 here, and we are getting set to roll once again. It's been an action-packed night, and only 2 cautions to this point. Lap 1, and the one we just had about 5 laps to go with Kyle Cooper in the number 73. He did a good job, of course, of saving it, and that was an automatic caution, so really the blame not on him there. That's just the way iRacing interpreted the system. And so Ethan Lane getting that free pit stop. Everyone else, though, back on the lead lap, at least down to 7th place in Nicholas Ward. It's a big-time division in the field as we come back to green this time by, and it's going to be a sprint to get home to the checkered flag. Field is going to be let loose by Ethan Lane and his company further behind. Green flags out, and Lane will get the jump en masse. He'll bring Bobby Ross with him to the podium, and Tarbuck stays second. Number 54 of Ethan Lane is going to now get the race lead once again. 37 laps to go, and even take a look off the rear end. Nick Tarbuck, right behind him, is still in frame. And the gap still grows. Half a second now back to Nick Tarbuck. Taking a look back in the rest of the field. The battle for third is 3 wide. Ross Cato now going to be down to the inside. He will look low as a lapper, no less. And it's going to be 4 wide. Tom Wetmore sticking himself into it. And that's about as close as they got to full 4 wide racing all night long. Cody Smith remains in third. Brad Patton going to have to settle in and settle down. And now it's going to be Ross Cato racing for the opportunity, the lucky dog slot. There's now Galen Gidman also looking for a position here, trying to slice and dice around the guys he's working with. He's going to decide to lay back with Brad Patton and instead fall in tow and hope for something to happen from here on out. Tom Wetmore, another lapper. It is a mixed field. Some drivers who are leading contenders, some of which were not even close now, and the majority of the field is at least 1 lap down or more. Only 1 retiree. Everyone else is on the track, and that retiree, it was a voluntary retirement. Everyone on the field, save for 1 driver, has chosen to keep on going, and the majority of the field is more than 1 lap down here. 51 to Tom Wetmore, now finding himself tucking in against Jacob Fife. Fife is currently going to be one of the top 5 drivers due to the lead lap circumstance. And Tom Wetmore, he is currently in 14th. It's quite the opposite circumstance. It's an up and down, so not necessarily a 50-50 situation, but instead, you see some drivers who maybe are just looking for the opportunity with a caution. Some of which are going to drive hard for that. Some of them might even try to get the lead lap status back naturally. And the 51 of Tom Wetmore put 3 wide as he heads down to the apron again, and shades of Ethan Lane trying to cut deep on Cody Smith. Has some success, but not enough as Smith falls down a 5th. The laps remaining. The Magic Mile 151 is now going to be a dogfight to the finish. Tom Wetmore barely getting away from Sam Nieto, and this is now going to be the battle for fourth. Jacob Fife getting away. Cody Smith now trying to get still with Sam Nieto. Nieto makes the pass, dives deep to the inside line. Take a look at the number 73, trying to stick it 3 wide as well. Nicholas Ward looking for a top 5. The number 97 in the picture now, right behind Cody Smith. And if you thought it was over, it definitely is not. It is a hornet's nest, and everyone else going to be going at each other lap after lap consistently until the job is done. A little bit of a wiggle there from Cody Smith. Bigger wiggle from Nicholas Ward. And now comes Kyle Cooper going 3 wide in the corner. And Ward locks it down and keeps himself just beside him. That could have been much worse. And yet Ward gets away, working down the back straight. Still finds himself barely ahead. And he's got himself now up on top of the top 10 in the pylon. He is 6th currently, and getting away without much trouble. That's a victory in itself, as the field once again prevails. No caution. Now with 29 laps to go, Ethan Lane with a 1.2 second lead, and perhaps a little bit more to gain as the time here progresses. Although his gap has diminished, he is still your leader and is looking to hold fort until the job is done. Checkered flag is due to fly in 28 laps time now. Time is running out for the majority of the field, and they know it. They've been racing each other harder and harder, the hardest we've ever seen, and it's not about attrition tonight. Everyone's made it down to these final 50 laps, save for Matt Jonas. It's now all about aggression, push for positions, try to make some moves that gain spots rather than looking for the big picture right now. I think now, especially for the lead lappers, go for broke. You're on the lead lap already. You can try to make some riskier calls, and that's why we saw Nicholas Ward and Tom Wetmore's going to be spun. Talk about a risky call. Caution's out. It's a pileup. Bobby Ross is barely going to get away, but Bobby Terrell gets contact. We're under yellow for the 3rd time tonight, and Nicholas Ward with a risky move brings us to the caution yet again. Let's take a look back, although this one looked to be pretty cut and dry with respect to what happened. 97 going to be up high, and he stayed right behind Tom Wetmore, and you could see as they come around, turns 3 and 4, Ward taps the back end of Wetmore, spins him around, and then Bobby Terrell catches both drivers in the incident. Wetmore with more damage, Ward with some of the backside, and Bobby Terrell's front end is scuffed. Caution flag is out again, and the yellow going to fly. With 26 laps remaining, we pace yet again as we set ourselves up for the long term here. Perhaps a few more yellow flags, as now these short stints are breaking themselves up. Cautions breed cautions, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Ethan Lane get a lead as we come around for only 25 laps remaining. Another pit stop for Lane and Tarbuck. They're going to decide to go for a risky call, and Brad Patton going to come with. It looks like it's more so 50-50. The drivers on the lead lap will decide to opt in, and those who are not will try to get their lap back. So now there's going to be a difference between trying to keep that position versus, of course, being the lap down. Pit road's going to get busy here and now. This could be the race-off pit road that determines everything, and we're going to see what happens here as drivers make their way out and try to settle their unfinished business on the circuit. Now, as you see, drivers making their way to the exit line. Ethan Lane going to be able to beat out Nick Tarbuck. Then comes Brad Patton, and then Jacob Fife with Sam Nieto, Nicholas Ward, and Cody Smith. Those are the 7 who were on the lead lap previously. Now the majority of the field is back on the lead lap, and we are mostly dead even. "25 laps to go. Ethan Lane, Nick Tarbuck, Brad Patton, the 1-2-3 combo. And now the lappers opting to come down to pit road here. Kyle Cooper going to lead them in with Bobby Terrell, Tom Golker, Randy Fiash, John Steele, and a few of which at the back of the field deciding, you know what? Track position, you don't have much of it. Why not try to go for an alternate strategy where you might be able to gain on that sort of short-term run that we have in the picture now? Eli Cars and Ethan Lane negotiating right there under yellow. Looks like Carr's getting the signal to go again. And the pace car's lights still on, 2 laps to green. We should be coming back green with 22 laps remaining. And for those of you tuning in on FTN, you won't miss a thing as we go to associate coverage, FTN nonstop for a few moments here before the green flag flies, and we'll make sure you see the screen and all the racing action before we bring us back to green with the iRacing official pace car. Ethan Lane, current race leader, and will return after the following messages. Uninterrupted coverage on FTN nonstop. We'll be right back.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
This message is brought to you by the rebrand of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This publication may not be reposted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. NASCAR Camping World Ford F-150. NASCAR Xfinity Ford Mustang. NASCAR Cup Series Next-Gen Ford Mustang. Arca Menards. This has been the publication of the redesign and rebranding of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This message may not be reposted, republicated, or rebroadcasted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. Thank you, and thanks for your time.
So now we return with 22 laps remaining. This lap by, we're going to crank it up with our friends at TrackCams22.com, leading iRacing camera providers. They're facilitating our wonderful onboard cameras for tonight's event. We're going to give you all the angles as we get loud here with our third restart of the day. Ethan Lane going to bring the field back to green, and it's a strategy race to the end, a sprint with 21 laps remaining as we crank it up. Brought to you by TrackCams22.com. It is still Ethan Lane up in front with 15 laps remaining. The battle for second was fierce, and now it's been settled. Jacob Fife in the number 36 in the catbird seat. Brad Patton now going to be third, and Nick Tarbuck position number 4. 15 laps remaining for all drivers on the field, and for the time being, it's Sam Nieto and Nicholas Ward who find themselves now 5th and 6th, going at each other and trying to make it a little bit tighter of a battle. Nicholas Ward is. Ward, he's got to put himself now in a position for a top 5. Top side he will go, trying to make something happen. And prevailing momentum, as it looks like Sam Nieto trying not to go to that apron round, is going to help out Nicholas Ward much more than anything else, as the number 97 keeps himself up high. Maybe got a tap of the wall there. You can see he's got that right side damage from previous incidents. That's not going to help him out, but it looks like he still remains close in the fight. Sam Nieto comes across the stripe again, and there he has it. Up into 5th, Nicholas Ward there in 6th, Cody Smith 7th, and Bobby Ross position number 8 is further back, with Ross Cato then 9th, and Michael Araya rounding out the top 10. You find now that Jacob Fife is in 2nd, and maybe for a lot of the opportunities that Jacob Fife has had tonight, he might have not been the most opportunistic. He might have seen them, he might have not taken them, but now getting the perfect opportunity late in the race to push. Looks like Jacob Fife has found himself in a good position in which 12 laps to go. He's in 2nd here and just has to defend upon a hard-charging Brad Patton, which is easier said than done. But you see now, he gets those runs off the corners. He gets away from Brad Patton. He puts himself in a position where he can keep 2nd. And he is still there, holding fort all the same. Hanging tough, the number 36 of Jacob Fife, still 2nd. Nick Tarbuck also might have the opportunity to steal a podium here. That's how close he is right now. He's kept himself in the picture, and it looks like if something were to happen, he's still there, lying in the shadows and lurking. Of course, a mistake is made. Don't expect Nick Tarbuck to back off. He admittedly made a big mistake with about 17 laps to go. We caught it on the cameras coming out of turn 4. He got loose, had to save himself, and put himself back in position once again, and just kept going. That's the type of attitude a driver needs, even in the late portion of this race where you might consider giving up. Just not the way you want to go for it, especially now. Just keep going. The attitude right now these drivers have to hold is progression regardless of where you are, and that's what Nick Tarbuck has done. Even though he admittedly lost the spot as a result of that mistake, he's still hanging tough here with Brad Patton, and if Patton is to make a mistake here as he goes through now with that Ethan Lane style apron line, Tarbuck's waiting, and he's going to keep this an exciting fight until the very end. Single digits, 9 laps to go. Ross Cato right here with Bobby Ross and Michael Araya. Araya has faded back just a little bit more, and as it stands, it looks like a total now of 13 drivers are on the lead lap. Tom Wetmore now going to be one of the final of which, 14 total now. Brian McFerrin is 14th and last of those on the lead lap. Wetmore going to be 13th, and this is about the highest he's been running all night long. A down race for Tom Wetmore as he lets Brian McFerrin go by like a rocket into turns 3 and 4. And that front end damage from the first lap incident, compounded by that most recent damage in the incident involving, among other drivers, you saw Bobby Terrell in it, and that's what's happened here for Tom Wetmore. That damage has been persistent, and it has been ugly for this team. Just no way to rebound safely there. Nick Tarbuck going to get cut off again by Brad Patton, and the defense remains the advantage that Brad Patton holds. Seven laps to go. The lucky number perhaps for Ethan Lane to get away with this race win, but time has been changing the track just a little bit. Although nothing too major. Lane is still the quickest driver, and he's still been able to make it through, but as time has gone on in the session, the track temperature has gotten warmer, and it's gotten a little bit more manageable for every driver throughout this track. So maybe one of Ethan Lane's biggest advantages was that track temperature and the slippery nature of the circuit. It looked like on the apron, he was figuring things out much better than anyone else. You see there, Lane is no longer running down to the bottom all the way low, and instead is running a more conventional line. It's possible that the apron was being used as a little bit of a push-up line. Push yourself down low, and then, due to the nature of the slippery tires, you'll be pushed back up almost automatically. And now Ethan Lane, seeing that's not really necessary, the track temperature is lowering fast. Just went down to 94 degrees, the lowest it's been all day long here. It looks like no longer is that the viable strategy, and instead, number 54 machine is right up top. Jacob Fife going to be in second, Brad Patton third, and Nick Tarbuck is in fourth. Sam Nieto rounds out the top five. Cody Smith then sixth. Warden seventh here is going to be a little bit further off of Nick Tarbuck, but nevertheless on the lead lap. A lot of the usual suspects at the front of the field as Ethan Lane chases win number 4. A few other drivers are still chasing a guaranteed podium. Brad Patton now going to be on the back end of the number 36 and Jacob Fife. You can see here through turns 1 and 2 again, Patton has no chance of getting through immediately, but he set himself up quite nicely into 3 and 4, staying right on the back end here. Fife has to keep watching that mirror. Maybe not mirror driving just yet, but it hasn't come through for Patton, and I think he's going to have to make a move down low and rapidly if he wants a chance. Hasn't stuck his nose out yet, hasn't done anything egregious. But Brad Patton, not a stranger to playing a little bit hard and rough when it's necessary, but he always plays fair. I think that's what it's going to come down to here, whether or not Brad Patton is going to decide to make a move, make a risky one, and go for the plot of winning this race. He'll cut down deep all the way to the apron here, and there you have it. Patton looks low, and it shows that he's going to try for it, even if it's a risk, and even if Nick Tarbuck can now take a little bit more advantage. Coming across the line, popsicle sticks, 2 laps to go. 54 Machina Lane still leads. Jacob Fife in second, right on board with Brad Patton here, and see exactly what he's going to do in the battle. Fife with another nice run off the corner, as is for Brad Patton. Nick Tarbuck remains where he is too. It's the 2-3-4 combo fighting each other till the very end. Galen Gidman and Brian McFerrin additionally locked up in a battle, which we'll check back up on at the drop of the checkered flag. Ethan Lane, to bring us back from summer break, is up in front yet again. No stranger to victory lane. This would be his 8th of the season, and what a way to come back to points-paying action from the All-Star race. He finished second, and tonight, with all the championship on the line, Ethan Lane collects his 8th victory of the season and will win at the Magic Mile. Coming across the line, Fife and Patton on the podium, and it's toe-to-toe now. Don Stevenson with Bobby Ross. Ross breaks through, and a photo finish right there as Brian McFerrin will be bested by Galen Gidman. Lane's 8th victory comes in dominant form, and there was no doubt all night long Ethan Lane was the man looking for the checkered flag. He's got it. It is his and his alone tonight. Lane, a winner again in Loudon, New Hampshire. And here comes Lane, looking to burn down the house after a fantastic victory. The 54 gets it done again. Ethan Lane, once again, gets the job done. Unlike any other, his 8th victory of the season comes in dominant fashion, as he's been all throughout his victories. The top driver through and through. Let's take a look at your race results for tonight's event as we wrap things up and bring in your top 3 drivers for an interview. Ethan Lane wins from Jacob Fife in second, then Brad Patton in third, and Nick Tarbuck position number 4. Sam Nieto going to be 5th with Cody Smith then in 6th, and 7th place occupied by Nicholas Ward. 8th Michael Araya. Position number 9 is then going to be Ross Cato, and Bobby Ross concludes the top 10 all drivers here on the lead lap. 11th place is going to be then on out Don Stevenson, with Galen Gidman 12th, Brian McFerrin 13th, and Tom Wetmore in 14th, the final driver on the lead lap, with Kyle Cooper then and there in 15th. Tom Golker, the rookie on his debut, he's going to be in 16th, with Bobby Terrell 17th, Randy Fiash 18th, John Gearbon 19th, and John Steele 20th position. The final drivers go as follows, with Evan Ludi 21st, Eli Cars 22nd, and Matt Jonas, the only retiree of the day, 23rd, 83 laps down. And what a way to end it here tonight. Ethan Lane back in victory lane, no less, and his 8th victory comes tonight. He was the dominant driver and the best on the field by a wide margin. Time to get a word from all your top 3 drivers today. It's time to figure out exactly what they'd like to hear. Of course, I'm sure that for Ethan Lane, he knew victory tonight, a big deal in the championship standings. He's still fighting against second place Nick Tarbuck there for the runner-up spot. Michael Araya, admittedly with a little bit of a down day in 8th, one of his less impressive runs, but still keeping up that top 10 consistency. It goes to show that even for Araya, there are off races on the campaign. Ethan Lane, we're going to hear from him first, and so as we come to the FTN broadcast booth and get everyone assembled, we'll get the number 54 in, then we'll move on to Fife in second and Brad Patton to conclude the top 3. And so, as we're moments away from getting this interview, let's hear it from your top 3 drivers. First of which, collecting his 8th victory on the campaign. It looks like he's just about ready to speak with us now. It's time. It is all about the number 54, Ethan Lane, and he's standing by as we speak. Win number 8 tonight. It looks like you were the quickest driver far and away, but it did not come easy at the end. A few restarts and close battles that you ended up getting away from bring you to the checkered flag once more on top, Ethan. It looks like you had something figured out nobody else did at the Magic Mile. How was it like out there in Loudon?
Magic. Yeah, no, I knew from previous seasons and everything where the grip was here. It's definitely a very unconventional line. But no, it was fun. I was hoping we would be able to go green from that first caution, and it seemed like we were, but unfortunately it didn't go that way. It would be really interesting. A couple of us were wondering what the margin of victory would have been if it did stay green, but other than that, it was a fun race. Really didn't expect to have that type of pace. But we're back at short tracks. We didn't have a good outing at Iowa, but these flat tracks have definitely been really good for us this year so far, especially with, I think, half our wins now coming on short tracks. So we'll see how we go into Nashville next week. But yeah, it was fun. Enjoyed it.
And tonight you figured out something I think nobody else understood before anything else, and we got to ask about it because it was different from most other drivers until they saw you do it. Driving down to the apron and pushing yourself down low. Now, we saw the track conditions change. We saw you were doing this much throughout the early and middle portion of the race, and we were thinking about the tires. Track temperature was warm. Tires were slippery. Did that sort of move down to the apron at all help you out in managing your tires?
I think it did. That apron, especially down in turn 1 and 2, is a lot lighter than the asphalt on the main 3 lines that we usually run. So I think that's what helped a lot. I mean, I was still having to fight the car a lot too tonight. It wasn't an easy line to run in this car. But it worked. It definitely was something that you usually shouldn't see, but it's just how the grip is here at New Hampshire. But yeah, no, once everyone started figuring it out, they were definitely getting better at it each lap they did it, but it was definitely something you had to do from the beginning of each run.
And it looks like that call to sort of do things different tonight worked out the best of all. And the pace you had even bailed you out with those few cautions we had there. So many drivers off the lead lap that even with those yellow flags and drivers getting cycled back up, you, Nick Tarbuck and company, stayed in front, even if the cycles got broken up a few times over. You think it was the right call to sort of stretch those runs? And as things went out, it looks like it was, but what led you to that decision is the big question.
Uh, Tires basically. We only had 3 sets tonight, so you kind of wanted to push it as far as you could just in case there was a caution. Like, say if you did pit 5 laps early and you were hoping there wasn't a caution 5 to 10 laps later, you knew you couldn't pit, and then everyone has a big tire advantage on you. Um, but yeah, no, it was just stretch the runs out because I knew if you had the overcut, you would be definitely much faster over a run, especially after 10, 15 laps. But I'll give it to Jacob Fife and Brad Patton. They definitely gave me a run for my money at the end of that race. I wasn't expecting the uh, the line to move up as high as it did on the racetrack. We didn't have the grip there late in the race during the line we were running.
And all things considered, checkered flag back in your hand for win number 8. And you're looking real good now. 5 laps remaining before, or rather, 5 races remaining and then some before we head back for our next race, which will be 150 laps. So it'll be 1 lap shorter, but it's a slightly bigger track. It's Nashville Superspeedway. It's not a flat track by any means, but you're getting awful close to that 10 win marker here. You think there's maybe room to get it even closer next week?
Possibly. You kind of have to run Nashville like you have to run here. Not line wise, obviously. You don't want to be on the apron there. But if we can figure it out early in the race or early in practice, I think we definitely have a shot at getting number 9 next week.
Maybe an opportunity to go for back-to-back victories after summer break. Ethan Lane collecting the checkered flag here in New Hampshire. If you have any final shout-outs you'd like to give out or any final thoughts before we move on, the floor is yours.
As always, you putting on these broadcasts, Integrity putting on these races, and all the drivers in there. This definitely is not an easy car at some of these racetracks. And the fact that we went 100 plus laps green before the second caution really shows that this group of guys um, can definitely put on a good show.
Another great show put on here from the Magic Mile. Ethan Lane coming out on top of all those tonight, far and away. Thank you for your time, Ethan.
All right, thank you.
With Ethan Lane on the move, up next on the campaign of drivers we are to speak to, number 36 of Jacob Fife. Winner last season, and today we weren't expecting much of a podium until the final some 25 laps, Jacob. You took advantage and opportunity and made major gains from qualifying to race day and come home second here to end it all off in the Magic Mile 151. Almost a victory, still another podium, and back-to-back first and second at this track. It seems one of your best.
Yeah, we turned a really bad cue into a really good night tonight. I don't think anybody really had anything for Ethan, even though I was happy to keep up with him as much as it did on the last run there. I think everybody had migrated down to the bottom at the end of the race there. I was doing the same in the longer runs, but if you could if you could roll the top, um, and kind of keep somebody pinned down there, then you could pass people. And so when everybody went to the bottom, because that was the fast way, I kind of was able to kind of gun it and get on the outside of Tarabuck there, and get to second, which was really good. And then I got close to Ethan there a little bit, but unless I wanted to jam him with the bumper, I don't think I was really going to do anything with him passing him. So really happy with the second there. Really hard to pass, so was able to take advantage of some opportunities that came up during the course of the race and bring home a second place.
And bringing it home, qualifying, not the best as you mentioned, but we saw from the very beginning, before getting here in a second, you were already fighting for the top 5. As soon as about lap 50, we saw long green flag runs, chock full of strategy, and it seems like the 36 team learned an awful lot during that period. Were there any things, highlights per se, that really helped you out in getting that success back in the picture?
Yeah, I mean, just being consistent. I think this track specifically on our schedule is very line sensitive. So you have to kind of hit the same mark over and over again and kind of have a plan of what that is going to be. Because if you try to hit one line, but, do something different, then it's really going to throw off your lap and your rhythm. Um, so really trying to stay consistent. I thought we were pretty good on the longer run because that second one run we had, I was catching. I think it was Don and Brad, and I forget who. I think it was Sam. Um, I was catching them slowly through the course of the run, but then that caution came out right before I got to them, and really kind of changed the dynamic of the race with rave arounds, with guys who had pitted, hadn't pitted, who had tires left, who didn't. Really kind of flipped everybody. on what they were planning on doing. So that certainly helped. But definitely, I had speed. It's just I qualified so horrible tonight that it really didn't uh, show until, like you mentioned, probably the last 50 laps to be up front, and then that last um, or that middle third, if you will, was able to kind of be in the area of the top five to kind of make a good finish.
And it looks like opportunity came to you and you were able to show exactly the speed you had to finish off this race. Now, Nashville Superspeedway up next. We visited it with the Ignite Series already, so you might have a little bit more of an experience advantage compared to the drivers you're around. You think maybe some of that will play in as we head to the Superspeedway, or is it really going to be almost a clean slate once again?
I mean, I hope it helps some. I think you have some previous experience to going into it, just an idea of what line you could run. If I remember correctly, from when the Xfinity cars were there, you could move around a little bit. So I hope that's the case as well. We'll really for the Gen 4 cars is really set up dependent on what you're kind of allowed to do and where you can move, because it's so much more horsepower. Um, it really lights up the rear tires if you're not careful. But I hope to do well there. It's, I guess, technically my new home track since I moved out to Tennessee a few years ago, about an hour away. So hopefully we'll have a good run there, and looking forward to it. Should be a fun race.
We're looking forward to what's next, of course, some real-life endeavors for you and company, but tonight, in the virtual realm, second place here in Loudon. Jacob Fife, if you have any final shout-outs you'd like to give, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, as always, thank you for broadcasting our races. You do a great job. So I appreciate that. Just came back from our summer break, so I want to thank all the guys for coming back and racing with us after the break. We had a pretty decent crowd for New Hampshire. Not everybody's favorite track, so usually we have a little lower turnout. But thank the guys for coming back. Looking forward to our run to towards the playoffs, which aren't too far away, believe it or not. And then, as always, I do want to give a shout out to Next Level Racing and Pro Powder and Paint for sponsoring the league and helping us uh, be able to do this every week. So I want to thank them as well.
And just like that, Jacob Fife, second place on the board here in Loudon. Once again, we thank you for your time.
Thanks, man. Have a good night.
And Jacob Fife going to be on the move. The final driver we're speaking with is one who had to go for a hard charge from the bottom of the field on up. Brad Patton continues with no qualifying runs and yet major success. Another podium finish for the 7 crew, and it looks like some cautions helping cycle you back up. But you had speed from the jump, and you were making quick moves from 20th on the grid. And you salvage a podium out of it all, Brad. How's it feel?
Feels pretty damn good. I didn't expect to finish in the top 3, to be quite honest with you. I thought, top 6 I was all right with. But once that last caution came out, and we were hoping, or with the caution prior to that, I was hoping that, we would get one with like 25, 30 laps to go. That way I can get my set of tires and actually have a chance for a win. I don't think anybody was going to beat Ethan tonight. Ethan was just on another planet. And Nick was pretty fast as well. Then we got on that last restart there, and I think I botched it a little bit, and Jacob got by me and Nick was by me, and we were all battling. And I could have got second there, but I didn't want to punt Jacob out like that. I don't want to start off the second part of our season by doing dirty like that. But no, coming in third place after not liking the track, going out and running the fastest lap during a race, which is cool. Getting major points, in which I need, because I was 14th or 15th, and now I'm up to 13th. I would call it a win for the day. Say congrats to Ethan, and hell of a race with Jacob and the boys.
And you were caught up there in the tight battle there, indeed, in the 25 final laps. And even throughout the whole race, you made your way up, you cycled into the top 10, and you kept yourself in the thick of the fight. It seems like no matter where we go, you find yourself as one of the more patient drivers, very well versed with that tire saving. And tonight in New Hampshire, that meant an awful lot. And taking those tricks over here, you think that's what got you up there and propelled you so quickly?
A little bit, yeah. I think relearning the track again, especially with these cars, that helped a lot, because I wasn't really pushing it at the start of the race. I was just trying to learn the basics of the entry and the exit and what the car was going to do for like rotation through center. And I could not get it down. And then finally I got to thinking, why don't I just run this like I did Phoenix? same type of like degree banking. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to drive it in hard and see if I scrub the right front off. And I never did. So I just maintained that posture throughout the whole rest of the race, of just running it in hard and just let the car roll. And luckily, it got me up to where I was at.
And all things considered, making your way through a hard charge at the end for a podium, and you got yourself a load of momentum here coming in the final 5 races of the regular season. Up next, we're heading down to Tennessee for the Nashville SuperSpeedway. Maybe a race that's a bit more up in the air. We haven't seen it yet with the Gen 4 stock cars, of course. Any thoughts about the track before we make our way down?
I have a feeling we are going to be melting the right rear off of it. I don't know. It's just it's a very, to me, it's technical. You want to be on your P's and Q's when it comes to finding the balance through the turn, especially when you're following somebody at the speeds that we're going to be going. So it's going to be about saving your tires. I think saving the rights it's going to be huge. And we're going to try to bring the high line in. I don't know if the high line really works, but like I said, me, Ethan, there's a couple of us that love to run a high line. So I'm sure you'll see us up there. Once again, won't be qualifying, and we're going to try to do another hard charger and come to the front.
And definitely winning the hard charger award again tonight, Brad. 3rd place on the day here from New Hampshire. Any final thoughts you'd like to give?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you guys at FTN for broadcasting. Thank Integrity for putting on a hell of a show each and every week. Congratulations to Ethan once again, and Jacob for finishing first, second. Thank my fiance for watching. Thank everybody who was watching out there, and got to thank my sponsors. I got to thank Wanagoons Racing, High Rise Fuel and Energy. I have so many sponsors on the cars. McConey Setup Shop, can't really forget them at all. But yeah, too many people to thank.
Well, list of names and a good result to go with. Brad Patton, 3rd on the day. Thank you for stopping by.
All right, David, have a good night.
Brad Patton going to be on the move. That's a word from all of our top 3 drivers making it happen, with Patton in 3rd, Jacob Fife in 2nd, and Ethan Lane getting the job done, and he will win his 8th race of the season. He's been dominant with victories and now just has to pull the consistency together if there's any chance to get back up there for the regular season championship, as we will move on again to the Nashville SuperSpeedway in just a week's time. Exciting night here from the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and we hope you enjoyed all 151 laps of racing we've seen here from Loudon. We thank you all for watching exclusive coverage of the Integrity OCTANE Series 18th race, the Magic Mile 151. Calling the action was myself, David Kreutz, commentating and producing. And if you enjoyed tonight's coverage, make sure to leave a like on the stream and subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. We thank you all for tuning in. You want to join the fun? Check out our Discord and scan the QR code on your screen to enter the racing action as a fan, as a driver, or even as a broadcaster. We'd love to have you join the FTN team. Thank you once more for your continued support on the channel, and we hope you have a fantastic night.